All right, this is a 1999 Mercedes E300TD Diesel. I today am changing had a little bit of a fuel leak. Um, this is one, the fuel leaks in these cars can be kind of tough to find sometimes. But it was due. There's quite a few miles on here. We have changed all of the typical prerequisite, I guess you might say, first things first to get to when you've got the oil leaks, or sorry, fuel leaks, are all the plastic fuel lines over here. Pretty inexpensive, if I recall correctly, like somewhere between 50 and 80 bucks for the set. They come with all new O-rings. I know one thing that some folks complain about is leaks from the fuel shutoff valve, which is right under here. But in this case, had one before about 10 years ago, and kind of snugged it up the sort of old redneck way. Just sort of grabbed one of these. I didn't have the right tool, grabbed one of these and just twisted it and got the leak to stop. But the top of these directional valve, diverter valve, they call them DV valve. The name escapes me at the moment. But in any case, at the top of the injector pump are these 6 DV valves, and there's little O-rings underneath them, O-rings and then a crush ring. So today I'm going to be changing those. As you can see, I've already started taking off the injector lines, and then I decided, what the heck, I'll go ahead and film this because there's not a heck of a lot of videos showing this. First thing I did is I got copious amounts of brake cleaner because this area is pretty dirty. So tons of brake cleaner. I just got the Walmart brand brake cleaner and an air compressor and a scrub brush, and brake cleaner, air compressor, and scrub brush. And I just scrubbed everything nice and clean because you definitely don't want any debris or any dirt getting in there because that could be really detrimental to the injectors. Took off injector lines number 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just one thing to check, I'm also going to be replacing these plastic clips. There's some plastic clips that hold the injector lines that are held down together over here. I will show as an example over here. I did buy replacement injector lines number 3 and 4. Don't know if this is going to show up on the video. You can see right over here, they were rubbing together because the plastic clips had broken. And there's some pretty significant flat spots on these. I don't know if it's going to get the focus or not over here. But definitely glad I caught this before it became a problem because you've got some pretty high pressure going over here. In the order of what is it, 150 bar? I think that's somewhere 135 bar. I think that's somewhere in the area of pretty close to a couple thousand psi. So you don't want these blowing on you and make quite a mess. So not cheap. They were honestly, I just got those at the Mercedes dealer. The Mercedes dealer were just as about pretty much same price as any of the aftermarket mail-in companies. They were $50 each. Difficult to find the part number on those. They even at Mercedes, they are listed as ignition lines, as if they're a spark plug line or something something like that, which obviously they're not. Screws that hold the top of those little tabs that I was showing you that I sort of redneck tightened them 10 years ago. They're in a certain orientation. So number 1, number 3, and number 5 come down first. And then number 2, number 4, number 6 flop on top of it. And that's what holds the DV cap from rotating, over the years and when you tighten down the injector lines, because those have to be torqued to 35 Newton meters. Remember to convert your Newton meters to pound inches. I've actually bought I got a regular torque wrench, but I went ahead and I bought, it's pretty inexpensive. I bought this digital one at Harbor Freight that'll do all the different ranges, and it's a plus or minus 2% accuracy, 3/8 drive. So I figured it was well worth the investment. The part numbers. See if I got the part numbers. Well, these are the crush rings that go underneath the little cap. So there's crush washers, and there are O-rings. I will try to go ahead and list all this information in the description. So here's some of the plastic clips that I purchased, the crush washers that I purchased. The other plastic clips and the O-rings are in here somewhere underneath my mess over here. Again, I probably spent as much time cleaning all this as I'm hoping I will, removing everything. So as you can see, I've gotten everything pretty much disassembled over here, here, and here. Vacuum line over here. Obviously, of course, take the intake manifold off. I guess I kind of blew right over that part, didn't I? To take the intake manifold apart, you have to remove this one clamp that is around the EGR exhaust. So hopefully whoever took it off last time oriented the bolt so it's very easy to get to, because you can, if you've got an extension, just get to the bolt, unscrew it, pops right off. Most of the time you just hang it back over here. That separates the EGR from the intake manifold. I actually have this unbolted at the moment, but this will be still bolted to the bottom of the intake manifold in this fashion. So the only thing you got to get underneath the car for, you got to get underneath the car right over here. It is one bolt holding the intercooler pipe to the bottom of the EGR valve. It is a what is that? I guess that's a 5mm Allen head that screws. So you go to the bottom of the car, find that one Allen head bolt, unscrew that, open this clamp up, take off the two vacuum lines that go to the EGR, both here and here. Unscrew the bolt at the top and the intake manifold. Wiggle it and pops right off. It's actually, after you've done it a couple of times, it's literally a not even a 10-minute procedure. Some people say that that's the hardest part. And as a matter of fact, the first time I ever bought this car, it scared me, and I didn't want to get into it. And I had somebody else change the glow plugs, and they changed all my glow plugs, and they made the grave error of putting all the glow plugs back in again without never sees. If that's one hint that I can give you, these motors go through glow plugs every 50 to 80,000 miles to 100,000 miles. You'll need a glow plug or two. Because he didn't put the copper base never sees on the glow plugs, 5 out of the 6 of them snapped in the head. I came up with a way to get them out of there. It was about a 2-week job, little by little, a couple hours every day after work. I did figure out a way to get them out of there, which I don't think there's too many people that have figured that out, but not going to get into that whole process right now. But if there's one thing I can tell you, never sees. That was 200,000 miles ago, if not more. After I put never sees on these things, boy, they come in and out, no problem at all. So why I'm getting into this, this car would leak, and it's been going on probably a couple of years. The car would actually leak when it gets real cold out. As soon as the engine warms up, the leak would disappear. But again, this brake cleaner is sort of your friend when finding the leaks. Clean everything really, really good. A scrub brush, brake cleaner, and air compressor, and then let it run, and then you can see the leak plain as day. So I'm going to start over here with number 6. Special tool base. Oh, I should mention that. Also, special tool, spline tool. It's a 30 splines. I got it on Amazon. I think it was like $9. Special socket to take off those DV valves. I guess I should have led with that, because you can't do the job without it. But for some reason or another, here goes the first one. Probably should take that Torx head socket off of there. All right, so I am going to do this very gingerly, if I can. Feeling a little bit of resistance. I have a feeling that resistance was the O-ring coming apart, because now it's coming out nice and easy. Underneath this cap is a very small spring. I think there's a socket. EV valve, a little bit of fuel, tiny little spring underneath there, and that's exactly what I've been told I was going to see. And yeah, that O-ring is a mess. It's coming apart in pieces. And I don't even think that was the one that was leaking. It's just that these O-rings have been on here since, these are the originals. They've been on here since 1999. And as you can imagine, they're giving up. So spring off of here because I'm going to have to in order to get to the crush washer underneath. And I'm going to try and make sure nothing, that little diverter thing underneath there's the crush ring sits on top of a little cylinder that goes up and down. And I want to try and leave that in there. I've heard some people that take them out just to mess with them and play with them, but I'm going to not do that. I'm going to just leave well enough alone and only access what I need to. I don't even really know, from what I've heard, I've heard it said that you don't even really need to change those crush washers, but I figure while I'm in there, it's right there. It's sitting right on top of the sitting right on top of that little tappet or valve, I guess you might say. The one that I don't want to take out. I'm going to use these Harbor Freight little pick tools. These are cheap as heck. 66836 is the part number for these Harbor Freight pick tools, like little dentist torture devices. I'm going to use these probably for a good part of the job, both taking these old O-rings off, but that just broke right off. Taking the old O-rings off, as well as getting that little monster out of there, that little crush ring. There's one crush ring out of there. So, old baby crush ring. I'm going to put that aside. Okay, so now I'm going to plop that in there. Try and position it in the middle. Of that tappet looking thingy in there. The tappet's moving around a good bit. Actually, I think I got it pretty good there. What I wound up doing is tappet moves around quite easily, but if you put this little point right on the tip of the tappet and give it a little push down, it kind of seats itself in there pretty good. I've got it centered. Let me see how well I can do at getting my spring back on there. See if the spring holds. It's standing there pretty good. Standing at attention. Okay, now new O-ring. There's my box of O-rings. Tub of grease over here that I kept just for the sake of just in case I had to kind of hold parts together, which I guess I didn't do. I'm going to put just a tiny dab of grease on this on the edge of this O-ring and just wipe it around the edge just to make sure that O-ring is a nice lube to it so that it can seat properly. And now I'm going to try and go as centered as I possibly can. Dip this thing in place. Spin it back on. Feels like it went on there pretty nice. So now another trick that I've heard, so now it's just ready for me to torque it to that 35 Newton meter value. And all right, I'm zoomed in a little bit on number 5 over here, which I've already loosened it and unscrewed it, 90% of the way. So I've got the camera, my phone zoomed in pretty close. Hopefully there'll be good enough resolution for you here. Put my headlamp down on there as well. So I'm going to carefully unscrew it, lift it out very slowly, let the diesel fuel that's in there trickle out. And as I pull it out, the spring is still sitting there, and the old crush washer is also still sitting there. The O-ring is a mess. It's spread out across the threads, as well as, completely off. Like just a little pick in it, it just cracked. So over here, ever so carefully, grab this little spring out of the top, put it on my clean rag over here. I'm going to put this back down here with this little pick. Drop it on top. Try to center it as best as I can. In there, so that you can kind of see what it looks like. Come on. There we go. So you can see there's the crush washer on top. That little nub in the center, that does kind of spin around on top of the cylinder that everything's sitting on top of, and the whole cylinder can wobble around a little bit if you pick it back and forth. So as you can see, I just kind of shoved everything in place, and it's kind of holding, because of the, I guess you might say, the suction power of there being a puddle of diesel in there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Everything's nice and clean. All right, put my camera back up on my tripod over here and try to surgically place this back in the hole here. See how well it screws in. This one, just like the other, pretty much turned all the way in by hand very nicely. I didn't feel any restriction. I figure if I can turn this thing all the way in that far by hand, that I'm doing all right. So that's number 5 and number 6.